Welcome back to Daily Flash. When you think of self-care, it's about taking good care of your mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual self. Joining us to talk about the importance of self-care is Dr. Lori Davis. Dr. Lori, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Good morning.
First off, tell us what your definition of self-care is and why it's so important.
Yeah, I think so many of us are overwhelmed and stressed out. There's such a push towards productivity and efficiency. And so I think so many people are longing for more of a balance in their life. And I think self care is really about balancing out that equation. There are lots of different forms, right? We need exercise, we need good rest, we need good connection with our partners. And it's just so important to keep that balance in mind as we're looking to be productive. We also need to take care of ourselves as well.
That's so true. I mean, our lives get busy and they get more packed every day with a laundry list of things to do. And some people may look at self-care as being selfish or another item on their to-do list. What's your reaction to that take?
Yeah, I think, in this sense, I think the selfishness is good. I call it being selfish, right?
Nice.
And right. The idea is that we need this time. We need time for reflection, for contemplation, meditation, and just the time to care for ourselves. It's just an essential part of life. And I think it's important just on its own sake, but actually it also makes us better for the other people in our lives if we do have a chance to take that time. Unfortunately, our lives are so governed by our calendar and our to-do list that, for most people, I think self-care ends up getting on the to-do list. And that's sort of a necessity. But I think that the challenge there is just that we have to switch to our mode, to remember that this is something that we're doing for ourselves and taking the time to receive that, and not just make it something else that we're checking off the list.
I have to ask you this question. How important is it to be able to say no?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's such a fantastic question. No is essential. I think that we need to be able to do both. We need to be able to have the capacity to say a full-throated, full-hearted yes when we really mean it. And we also need to be able to say no so that we can create the space for our authentic yes.
I think so many people feel guilty if they have to say no to something, even though they don't have the time or they're spreading themselves out too thin. When it comes to intimacy, how does that correlate with your self-care?
Yeah, I think that so much of caring for ourselves is about finding ways to have more pleasure in our lives, finding ways to have greater connection and experiences of love. And I think intimacy and sexuality can be such a beautiful place and opportunity for self-care. I think that really turns the notion of what sex is about on its head for many people. I define sex as shared self-care through pleasure. So it's this really beautiful and unique opportunity where we can fully care for ourselves while caring for the other in a mutual kind of back and forth. And I think that I would just recommend that people take this opportunity to consider in their own lives and their own sex lives, like, in what ways is this self-care for me? And if it's not, how can I create a little time, space, and maybe some time for communication with my partner to open up self-care for sex, to have more self-care for yourself in it.
I think the big question that a lot of people struggle with is communicating that part of it. So what do you recommend for a couple or for somebody who's in a partnership that is pretty much booked throughout the entire day, and yet that's an important part of the relationship? Where does that communication start and how should it?
Yeah, I think that the communication is so hard around this. There's so much shame when it comes to our sex lives. And honestly, I think we have to sort of step our toe towards the things that are a little bit awkward, trust in ourselves, trust in our partner's capacity to be able to handle these conversations, approach them with deep love and respect, knowing that this can be such a tender area. But don't not go there just because it's a little bit difficult, because I think with a small amount of effort, you can reap huge rewards. Yeah.
And you mentioned that effort, with somebody who might be overwhelmed by a long to-do list. What's your take? Is it a small step at a time when it comes to carving out time for yourself? Or do you just dive right in and push away an hour or more a day for yourself?
I think it's going to be different for everyone. And I think that what I really encourage people to do is to start with asking the question, what does self-care feel like to me? what does it feel like on the inside? What is my felt sense of being cared for by myself? I think if we start with that felt sense, that can help us sort of navigate the choppy waters of when, how, where, and the difficulties of just scheduling. I think we do have to just create some intentionality around it too. How, if that's 15 minutes for you or an hour for you. I think that unfortunately, with how jam-packed our lives are, if we don't create some space and time and intentionality on it, it just won't happen. It's unfortunate. I wish things weren't like that, but it is. It's simply too important to leave to the end of the day and a maybe, and when I get to it.
So true. I mean, and it should be #1 on our list. Dr. Lori, thank you so much for joining us. Here's more information on how to get in touch with Dr. Lori Davis, radicalsexologist.com. Dr. Lori, thanks again.
Thank you.
Daily Flash returns in a moment.